3 races, 0 points, and an engine so rough it's actually hurting its own drivers. Then Honda's trackside chief steps up and basically admits what nobody wanted to say out loud. After Suzuka, no big performance upgrades until a duo kicks in, and almost nobody really stopped to think about what that actually means. This isn't just some upset engineer blowing off steam after a messy weekend. Not even close. This is a top technical leader making it clear the engine isn't getting fixed, not because they can't fix it, but because the rules straight up won't allow it. That one detail changes everything, and the moment when those restrictions finally ease, it's coming up fast, way closer than most people realize, and way more important than anyone's been explaining. So what's really going on here? Let's break it down. The 2026 regulations introduced something called a DUO, Additional Development and Upgrade Opportunities. Sounds boring, right? Like paperwork nobody cares about. But in reality, it's a built-in escape route for teams stuck exactly where Aston Martin and Honda are right now. Here's the deal. The FIA doesn't just look at lap times or race results when judging engine performance, far from it. They track power units using a strict index based on dyno data and actual ICE output. No guessing, no hype, just raw numbers at specific checkpoints during the season. Every manufacturer gets measured against that same system, and that's where things start to get very serious. If a manufacturer's internal combustion engine falls more than 2% below the benchmark, most likely set by Mercedes, they unlock one extra home homologation upgrade for 2026 and another for 2027. And if that gap stretches past 4%, it gets even bigger, double the upgrades, more chances to fix things mid-season, and even more freedom the following year. Now here's where it gets intense. Honda isn't sitting around hoping they might qualify for a DUO. Not at all. They're operating like it's already guaranteed, and even more, that the gap is big enough to push them into that higher bracket. Look at the signs. The vibrations shaking the car apart, the battery issues causing damage, the clear lack of power, and Alonso only managing to complete one full race distance out of 3 attempts, and even then finishing a lap down. That's not a small 2% problem, not even close. That's a team sitting way further behind than anyone wants to admit. Once the ADUO evaluation confirms that gap, everything changes. The rules suddenly give Honda something they don't have right now, the green light to actually fix the engine properly. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. The entire timeline got thrown into chaos. The ADUO evaluation was supposed to happen right after the 6th race of the season. Under the original 2026 calendar, that lined up perfectly with the Miami Grand Prix in early May. 5 races of clean data, a solid performance picture, and just enough time to approve upgrades before the season got too deep. Then everything shifted. The Bahrain and Saudi Arabian Grands Prix were cancelled because of the conflict in the Middle East. And just like that, the plan fell apart. Suddenly, the entire schedule flips. The 6th race of the season isn't Miami anymore. It's Monaco in early June. That's a 5-week delay before Honda can even get its ADUO evaluation. 5 weeks where the AMR26 keeps racing with an engine Honda's own engineers have basically admitted is fundamentally limited without upgrade approval. And those 5 weeks, they're brutal. Aston Martin's chief trackside officer, Mike Crack, didn't sugarcoat it either. He said, "The earlier the improvements can be made, the better." That might sound calm, but it's actually a huge understatement. This is coming from someone who just watched his cars struggle to even finish races across 3 weekends. Behind the scenes, the FIA knows there's a real issue here. Multiple sources, including Motorsport Italy and The Race, report that the governing body is already working on a fix to stop the timeline from slipping this far. Here's what's being discussed. Instead of letting the ADUO evaluation drift to Monaco, they're trying to lock it closer to the original Miami window. That could mean setting a fixed calendar date or tweaking the race count trigger to account for the cancelled events. Either way, the goal is obvious: and urgent. The evaluation needs to happen around Miami, not Monaco, because for Honda, this isn't just a small delay. This is everything. It's the difference between getting upgrade approval early enough to save the first half of the season, or being stuck in total regulatory limbo while the problems keep stacking up. And here's the part nobody says out loud, but everyone in the paddock understands. There's a quiet tension baked into this whole duo situation, and it's about to shape how far teams are willing to push things before help finally arrives. Here's where things get even more complicated. The whole system doesn't just run automatically, it actually requires agreement from the manufacturers, including the one setting the benchmark. And that benchmark? It's almost certainly Mercedes. Mercedes is the team defining what that 2% and 4% gap really means in real terms. And that puts them right at the center of everything. Because the truth is simple. Mercedes has the most to lose if a DUO gets triggered early and applied broadly across the grid. Think about it. If Honda suddenly gets 2 extra upgrade opportunities, that massive gap dragging Aston Martin to the back starts shrinking fast. And if Ferrari even qualifies for 1 upgrade, that straight-line advantage they've been relying on stops being a fixed weapon and turns into a moving target. Right now, Mercedes holds the strongest power unit by a clear, measurable margin after the first 3 races. That makes them the benchmark everyone else is judged against. But it also means they have almost no reason to support an earlier ADUO evaluation, and every reason to push it back to Monaco instead. And then there's the part people are quietly whispering about in the paddock. Several sources suggest Mercedes might not even be running at full power yet, that some performance is being held back, partly to protect reliability, but also to control how big the gap looks during the ADUO evaluation. Because if that benchmark number stays lower than it really could be, fewer teams qualify for the bigger upgrade brackets. And just like that, Mercedes keeps its advantage locked in for longer. None of this has been officially confirmed. But in a sport where every tiny rule detail can shift the entire grid, the timing of the ADUO evaluation isn't just admin work. It's a high-stakes power play hiding in plain sight. This isn't just technical, it's competitive. And the team that benefits most from keeping things exactly as they are has the biggest reason to delay any changes. While Aston Martin's engineers are stuck all through April trying to fix a car that can't even finish races without putting serious strain on its drivers, Lance Stroll is off doing something completely different. GT3 Racing Aston Martin's official statement. They describe Stroll as someone who has always enjoyed pure racing in all its forms. Sounds simple, right? But that wording hits differently when you look at what's been happening in Formula One. Pure racing. That phrase isn't random, it's loaded. Because this is the same season where Stroll openly called the 2026 regulations a shame, where he said the cars could be lighter, better, and more enjoyable to drive. He's been one of the most outspoken critics in the entire paddock about where the sport is heading. So when they say pure racing, it feels like a direct contrast to his current reality in F1. A car that struggles to finish races, an engine that vibrates so aggressively it forces drivers to loosen their grip on the wheel, and results that barely even register in the main fight. Japan made that painfully clear. Stroll ended up in what he called the Aston Martin Championship, a private fight with his own teammate for 21st and 22nd place while the real race carried on ahead. That's not competition at the front, that's survival at the back, and everyone can see it. Somewhere else on the timing screens, that GT3 entry is giving Stroll something he hasn't felt since pre-season testing in Bahrain, real competitive laps in a car that actually works. Now the big question is why? Is this just about keeping his racecraft sharp during the break? Or does it hint at something deeper about his connection with the car he's driving on race weekends? Only Stroll truly knows that answer. But the timing, that says a lot. But here's the bigger picture. The ADUO evaluation near Miami isn't the end of this story. It's the start of a whole new phase. And whether that phase looks like a comeback or just more damage control depends entirely on what Honda can deliver once the rules finally open up. The upgrade path is real, and it's already in motion. Honda is deep into work on a B-spec power unit, moving forward with the expectation that they'll qualify for the maximum 2 upgrades. That tells you everything. You don't plan like that unless you believe the engine is more than 4% behind the Mercedes benchmark. And that kind of gap? It's serious. That's not something you fix overnight or patch up in one go. What a duo actually gives Honda is something far more important: a legal way to make the big changes that are currently locked down under homologation rules. We're talking about real hardware adjustments, changes to the internal combustion engine layout, upgrades to energy management, and most importantly, fixing the root cause of those brutal vibrations. Not temporary fixes, not small tweaks on the steering column, but going straight to the source of the problem and ripping it out from the core. The timeline for all of this, completely unclear. Designing, testing, validating, and finally introducing a major power unit upgrade takes months, even in perfect conditions. And under the cost cap Honda has been dealing with since returning to Formula One in 2023, it slows things down even more. Inside Aston Martin, the expectations are already shifting. 2026 isn't being seen as a total failure, but it's not a breakthrough year either. It's shaping up to be a transition season, a foundation-building phase for what they hope 2027 will become. Here's how they see it playing out. The ADUO upgrades finally arrive, the vibration issues start getting under control, and leadership changes, like Wheatley joining from Audi, begin to reshape the team into something more unified and effective. And somewhere along that path, the AMR 26 stops being just a problem machine and starts showing real signs of potential. Not just a car defined by what Honda can't fix, but one that actually reflects what this team is capable of when things begin to click. Because right now, Honda has already said it clearly: no major gains until a DUO. That one statement says everything about Aston Martin's current situation. Miami brings the evaluation, the upgrades follow after, and the big question hangs over everything. Will it all come together soon enough to rescue this season? Or is the damage already too deep to undo? Don't forget to like and subscribe to not miss another F1 analysis.